Welcome to Guyana. Those little taxi minivans are a menace. Well, that's the end of the line for the tar. Well, that definitely qualifies as one of the worst camping experiences I reckon I've ever had. It just looks completely prehistoric to me. After having been run into by an out-of-control four-wheel drive and customs issues with my exit permit for the Tenere, I had finally managed to leave Suriname on my third attempt. A 45-minute ferry ride later and we arrived in Guyana. Getting off the ferry was a bit of a shambles. Oh, Jesus. Welcome to Guyana. Well, I made it into Guyana. It was, I met a bloke from the States who was originally from Guyana on the ferry. He rode bikes too, so we had a big chat about anything and everything. Then I've just been through all of the bureaucratic side of things here on the Guyanan side, and then they said, okay, you've got to now go around the corner of the cop shop. So I've just been to the Molson Creek Police Outpost. They've taken a copy of, or actually wrote down in the big book, all my document numbers and everything that they had to record, so that's all done. Now I'm enjoying my first meal in Guyana. It's pretty humble, but Jesus, hitting the spot, I'm starving. And now I've got, I think, between 3 and 4 hours of riding to get up to Georgetown. I've had about 5 or 6 different people warn me about the traffic and how chaotic it is. And I've got to say, after getting knocked off the bike the other day, I am more nervous than I used to be, that's for sure. So I'll be taking it fairly easy just to get a bit of a feel for it and see what it's actually going to be like. It's pretty good. Well, since leaving the ferry terminal about an hour ago, I've just been sort of driving or riding through these little villages, and they all seem to be pretty much linked together. There's no sort of countryside or scrub or anything in between. And there's just been literally thousands of these flags, and I couldn't figure out what they were until I came by a big billboard and it said, re-elect the president of Guyana, and had these colours again, so it must be his political party colours, I guess. So whoever the campaign manager is for the president, he's definitely taken a more is more approach with the flags. Left home from school. Looks like those goats have got somewhere to be. Well, I'm glad that's toll free because I've got no money. Well, that's definitely the biggest pontoon bridge I've ever been across. Despite the best efforts of the local drivers, I made it to Georgetown in one piece. My first priority was to try and find a bike shop that would fix the Teneray's crash damage. The mechanics at the Sleep and Bike store fixed the front brakes, straightened up the front end, and secured the broken fairing, but told me I was best to head to the Yamaha dealer in Boa Vista, just across the border in Brazil, for the rest of the repairs. They wouldn't take a cent for their time or consumables, saying they were happy to help out bike travellers that came through Georgetown. Top blokes. Having had to put the rest of the bike repairs on hold, I spent my time in Georgetown getting some more x-rays done, giving my foot some time to recover from the crash, listening to the Assembly of God choir a couple of doors down, and hanging out with my gecko mates. Found a warm spot on the cooker. Suck up a bit of warmth. Beautiful little thing. When my foot was finally small enough to get my boot back on, it was time to leave Georgetown and strike out south for the border with Brazil. After a 2-week layup, it was great to be moving again. Those little taxi minivans are a menace. They also have these tiny rims with tiny sort of diameter rims, really fat, and they just terrorise the streets. They all have air horns rigged up to them that sound like this. And as soon as they sound the horn, it's kind of just an indication to get out of the way. They'll then just sort of take off into the oncoming lane without really any regard for anyone's safety. Fuck, you're kidding me, aren't you? Fucking idiots. I decided on just a short ride south to Linden first up, to see how my foot would handle riding. I'm glad I hadn't pushed on, as it had swelled up a fair bit by the time I reached my hotel. I was just sitting outside my little hotel room here, and there's some kids came by, called me over, and they gave me this little fruit. I said, "What is it?" And they said, it sounded like graper. So maybe it's just because it's a little grape-esque in appearance. And I said, "How do you eat it?" And they said, "You just bite into it. Quite a crispy shell on it. And you peel off the crispy shell. And you got this orangey fruit inside, which is sort of tart but sweet. Bit hard to describe the taste. It's kind of it's not a million miles away from passion fruit. So you can oh, nearly lost it. There it is. Looks a bit like a lychee, but I don't know if mistletoe's like this in Europe, but mistletoe in Australia produces these little berries, and they and you can eat them, but they're really sticky. Really a bit like that. There's a stone inside, but the flesh of the fruit's really sticking to the stone really hard. Well, it's a bit of work to get any value out of it. It was fun. Graper. Try them next time in Guyana. I had a very pleasant night there in Linden. Now on my way south to the border, and this is the last of the tar for a while, I think, so I'll enjoy the smooth ride while I can. whilst watching out for monkeys. These chicanes used to slow the traffic down before a sharp corner remind me a bit of being in Ukraine. Looks like those ones have been rearranged a bit. Well, that's the end of the line for the tar. Just been through maybe 20 or 30 k's of heavy roadworks where they're sort of at the coal face of extending the seal bit. I think I've got about another 20 k's to go, and there's a fuel stop at a small town, so I'll top up there. Don't need much, but might as well be full because the next stint's a little bit longer. But it reminds me a bit of riding in Northern Australia, or driving in Northern Australia, up in the tropics bit. Sort of whitish red road full of corrugations and scrub either side, although the forest here is obviously a little bit thicker. Full please. It'll only take about 4 litres, I think. Been lucky so far. It's been beautiful and dry. Looks like a little bit damp here, but yeah, I expected some really wet patches, which might still be up ahead, of course. But just hope this rain stays off. Forecast thunderstorms today, but forecast thunderstorms every day. So it's just a matter of luck whether you actually end up underneath one or not. Arriving at the river town of Kurukukari on dusk, it was time to find out some information about the ferry for tomorrow, and then look for somewhere to camp. So I just stopped at the store to try and get a ferry ticket till I realised, well, I was told that I didn't actually need one. And a busload of blokes turned up coming across from Brazil. And this older fella got really excited about my bike, and he came over for a chat. Then he told me he's in a motorcycle club, and he shows me photos, and it looks like a full-on gang. And he's like, "Oh, I'll give my number. I'll give your number to my brother, and when you get to Boa Vista, you can go and look him up, and he'll look after you." So I'm thinking, geez, that might be interesting. Well, that definitely qualifies as one of the worst camping experiences I reckon I've ever had. Such a nice calm place this morning, but all night it's just an absolute circus here. So this is the last camping, well, it's the last spot before the ferry, and the ferry only operates between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. so outside of those hours, this is the end of the line. And So, you know, I picked this place because it was so peaceful and it looked so nice, you know. And when I pulled up here last night, I was pretty much the only one here. But then, about an hour after I went to bed, first minivan rolled in. So these are the minivans that, oh, morning mate. These are the minivans that bring people up and down from Georgetown down to the border. And yeah, first van turns up, it's all people and noise and everyone's yelling and laughing and drinking and playing music and stuff, and you know, just so I got the shits up and I'm yelling at people, and you know that nothing's working, because that's just not how it operates here. I was obviously foolish to think that there would be any peace and quiet at all. And then what would happen is that the people would finally go to sleep. They'd all rig their hammocks up and climb in, and everything would go quiet. And then literally 15 minutes later, the next minivan would pull up and the whole thing would start all over again. And that just repeated over and over and over until dawn. So yeah, it was a fucking shambles. I don't reckon I slept more than about an hour. So yeah, there's a lesson in that. I was umming and ahhing whether just to find a camp in the bush somewhere, and I bloody well should have done that. I know that now. And I did actually read an account when I was planning for this sort of section of the ride. I did read an account somewhere of some bloke saying that he stayed somewhere that sounded very similar to this. And I remember when I went to bed, I kind of thought, gee, I hope that isn't this place. And sure enough, it was. Goodbye, worst ever camp. Now I'm heading down to the ferry to cross the Essequibo River, and I'm not sure how often. I think it just punts back and forth, so I don't know where it is in its little cycle at the moment, but that's okay. I'll go and check it out. Thanks, mate. Okay. Ooh, there's the river. Let me on, boys. All right. Ooh. Interesting. Okay. Thanks, mate. Well, that was good timing. Well, passport check done at the police outpost. It was funny, I pulled up behind a truck and there was this figure concealed in a hammock, and then this face appeared and then this beckoning finger, and I sort of pointed to myself, "You mean me?" And he's nodded, and so I've walked over. He couldn't even be asked getting out of his hammock. He was just like lying in there, and I just handed him my passport and he's had a bit of a look at it, and then he sent me over to some other bloke who wrote the details down. But geez, take it easy, mate, take it easy. It might have been slow going on the track, but the rainforest was spectacular. I was even lucky enough to see a tyra appear out of the forest, run across the road in front of me, then vanish again into the jungle. Have a look at this swamp. How amazing does that look? It just looks completely prehistoric to me. Just imagine places like this have been here for ever. I mean, not these exact plants, but you get my meaning. So I seem to have popped out the other side of the rainforest and into the cleared area now. And it's a very, very different feeling. Suddenly sort of out of the age-old forest, and suddenly everything's a bit more developed. So yeah, little homesteads with lawns. I've seen some horses and some cattle and some open space. So yeah, very different. From the cleared country, I entered the flat expanse of the Rupununi Savannah. Mustering. I'm having my skeleton well and truly rattled by this road. I'm I don't know, about 80 k's north of Lethem now, and yeah, it's a bit of a shocker. It's kind of that hard baked clay with rocks in it, and as soon as it sort of potholes, it goes like concrete. But watching the trucks come down here, and the minivans too, I thought, geez, imagine this was your daily drive. You know, imagine this was the route you took, you know, weekly or twice weekly or something. Oh, gee, it'd wear you out. Welcome to Lethem. And I'm back on the tar. Another day of only going a couple of 100 k's, but it's taken all day. Slow going. I had reached the border of Brazil. After a feed and a decent sleep, I had a decision to make. After talking to the blokes at the bike shop in Georgetown, I had contacted the Yamaha dealer in Boa Vista. They didn't carry any Tenere parts. In fact, they didn't stock any imported Yamaha models at all. I soon found out this was the case in the next major city to the south of Boa Vista, Manaus. What's more, I couldn't get a new set of decent adventure tyres for the Tenere either. It looked like I was going to have to wait until I reached Peru to get the parts I needed. So I figured I had two options. Ride south from Lethem to Manaus and then on to Peru. 2,000 kilometres on my fading tyres, including the BR319, sometimes referred to as Brazil's worst highway. Or travel on a cargo boat upriver from Manaus and reach Peru that way, which would take about 2 weeks. Was it to be the highway or the waterway?